Yeah. That's actually very true because I feel like the past, I mean, it helps create your future, which
Mhm.
obviously, right, like your ancestry, of course, is important, right? But without knowing that, it's very hard to carry on your lineage and your descendancy because it's like you're just, just procreating just for the sake of it without like a real purpose behind it, right? And I remember there was this one quote that you had. It was kind of like prepare, don't prepare the path for your child, prepare your child for the path. And
Yep.
I was like, that's actually very true because a lot of people, they kind of do spoil their kids in a way where it's like they're pampering them, but not essentially not for the world, but they want the world to be pampered for them.
hmm hmm And it's good that you bring that up too, because I'm a child of two. I'm a child. I'm a father of two. I've got two kids,
Okay.
and it is very difficult to not want to just protect your child from everything,
Yeah.
right? Like you love them so much that you don't want anything to hurt them. You don't want anything to harm them. But by protecting them, by putting them in a bubble, you're actually doing them a disservice, right?
Yeah.
Because this world is harsh. One of the quotes that I like to bring up again and again is like this world is not a paradise world of nirvana, right? It is a
Yeah.
warlit star. It's a war starlit Valhalla. Okay, we are surrounded by adversity. We are surrounded by people trying to get a leg up against you constantly, right? And it's a fierce world, but it's not fierce in the evil sense, but it's designed and meant for our own betterment, right? Because if we overcome adversity, we become stronger. And
Yeah.
so this whole world is a world of war, so that way you can be tested against it, see what your mettle is, and every time you overcome, you become stronger. But then also people get hung up on failure. They're like, "Oh, I failed that. I'm no good." And it's like, "No, no, no. Failure is also part of the process. You learn where you were weak and you can take that and become stronger." Right? And so people that get bogged down by failure, they give up, right? And to me, it's like that's really a degenerate mindset. If you fail in something, that just means you got to keep going, right? And you don't do the thing that you were doing that you failed in the first place. And it's just war. It's just you're constantly trying to improve yourself. You're constantly training physically, mentally, spiritually. You're focusing on that, and all of that is wrapped up package of focusing on yourself and improving yourself. And so, as much as we want to protect our kids, we need to find a fine balance of allowing just enough danger to not destroy them, because we definitely don't want that, right? But also not so much safety that by the time they become adults, they're shocked by all of this adversity that they're getting pounded with. It's like there's no such thing as everybody gets a trophy. You got to work for that
Yeah.
trophy. You got to fight for that trophy. And so as a parent, it's our job, just as like it was our job of our ancestors, to protect our children, to teach our children, and pass on our wisdom. Wisdom is experience. So pass on our experience to them so they don't have to go through the exact same struggle and sacrifice we did, but that they can take those tools of wisdom and apply them to their own lives. So when they face adversity, they're able to overcome it. If we never talk about our struggle, if we never talk about our sacrifice and the blood we shed for our kids, and we avoid helping them through and guiding them through the difficulty, like the difficult trials that they go through in their own lives while they're with us before they move, we're doing them a huge disservice by not being there for them and allowing them to experience some hardship and adversity, um, while we can still keep it safe. There's a Jordan Peterson quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, but he essentially just he talks about that as he's just like, we gotta allow just enough danger for our kids, but not too much safety. And I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing big time, but it's people that watch Jordan Peterson, whether you like the guy or not like the guy, it's like he's got some great quotes, and something
Yeah.
along those lines was one of them.
No, that's for sure. I actually like that because what's actually ironic about when you pamper your kids too much is that you don't want them to get hurt, but you are hurting them by, pampering them too much, ironically.
Precisely.
And one of the things, like, I feel like, letting them be in a little bit of, like, I guess, like hardship, I feel like martial arts really, like, embodies that. funny enough, which is what I obviously practice.
Right.
But, but I feel like that will really help, right? Or just any physical activity can really help with that, honestly.
Hmm. No, exactly. Like sports is one of those is a great example because it is an environment of safety because there's
Yeah,
rules, regulations, there's coaches, there's referees, there's other players, just depending on the sport. And so that's why sports are so valuable and important to our kids because it teaches that war aspect of life, right? That it teaches us that we are faced with adversity with every play, with every encounter, with every move, but how to overcome it. And every time we fail, like every time you lose a fight, right, you've learned something about yourself. You don't just pick up and you're like, you know what, that's it. I'm a terrible fighter. I'm done. I'm going to go, bake cookies or something the rest of my life, right? You lose a fight and you're like, okay, what did I mess up? Like, where am I weak? Where do I need to focus? And if you can't figure it out, that's what your coach is for, right? Your coach is going to point that out and be like, hey, like, this is where you're failing. This is where you need to improve. And as parents, we are our kids' coaches, you know?
yeah. I actually like that, yeah. In a way, yeah, you are in a way like their coach,
Mhm.
assuming that you have enough experience, which yeah, you probably should if you have kids, right?
Yeah. And if you don't
But
have that experience, go get it. Go out
yeah,
and
exactly.
for kids, go out in life and experience stuff. Go mess up, go fail because your kids are going to. And you need to have that experience of failure so you can be there with them while they fail, right? It's
Yeah,
like
it's
we
true.
always want our kids to be better than us. Like that's the idea. Our ancestors wanted us to be better than them. We want our kids to be better than us. And so you need to go out and experience that, experience failure, experience success, so that way you can provide that for your kids. There's another quote, I can't remember where I heard it from. I think it was a Greek philosopher, but essentially it says, beware of the opinion of a scarless man. Because a man without scars has not experienced the pain of life.
True. Yeah. You know what's actually very interesting that you mentioned? Obviously, like it's important to raise kids, but there's obviously a bigger like goal to it historically as well. And I'm sure you've probably heard concept of like the civilization cycle,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's like in a way there's like the slow rise and then the climax and the decline and of course the fall, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then of course it starts again,
Right.
right? And when you don't raise your kids that well, you know, it's like you've kind of like decreased, I guess, in a way, the pull around you with like along the other kids, right? And when
Mm-hmm.
you don't fulfill your job as a parent, it's kind of like you've kind of let down that generation a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've held them back. And when you hold them back, like in a way, you're kind of contributing to the fall of that civilization, whatever civilization it is, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like that's why it's very important because your kids are going to live out in the world. And if they impact negatively, in a way, it kind of is your fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obviously, you try your best to raise them, but if you aren't even putting in effort, then it's like you did contribute to it.
Exactly. No, and it's like our kids are an aspect of ourselves as well, you know. So you want that part of you that's going to be carrying on longer than you, hopefully. Like that's what
Yeah,
you want. You want your kids to outlive you. Like you want them to leave a good impression on the world because that's your legacy, you know. And it's like a lot. I'm sure a lot of your viewers and a lot of my followers don't have kids, and so this may sound like it doesn't relate to them, but at the same time too, it's like, but think of that friend that you have, right? Who's inexperienced, who is too timid to go out and risk themselves or anything like that, right? It's like you don't have to just translate this over to your kids, but think of those within your immediate tribe. Like who is this someone that you care about that you know more because of your experience than they do that you could pour into, right? Like who could you be a guide for? And but before you do that, again, focus on yourself. That mastery of yourself will enable you to do that.